Please understand that everyone has a role, and we must all, sort of honor the sacrifice that each person makes in order to get their truth and the truth as they understand it to the people. So we honor that here, and it is important also to understand that realities differ, and someone's reality is not your reality. Germany's reality, for that matter, is not the UK's reality. And there are many sides to that story, and that goes for every life. You all live, you have reincarnation, we have multiple bodies that we inhabit on many dimensions and levels, and the fact is that this is not your only body, and what you're encountering here on the earth at this time is actually the past. It's the past, and you are time travelers. So it's important to know that what is being described is the past, strangely. And I know it might sound a little strange for me to say that. It's not that it's gone from the surface of the earth at this time. It's not that the darkness is gone. But the darkness serves a purpose. And we wouldn't be here. Creator would not be involved in creating a polarity, a universe, a dimension such as 3D going into 4D that has the polarity. The polarities are going to come together after when you leave this dimension anyway. So it's all one, if you want that wording. So it is here, where you are at this moment, something to look at, something to be aware of, and again, learning about the history of our species, of the human vehicle that you are inhabiting. But again, you are also from elsewhere. You have also inhabited other vehicles on other planets, and you do it this time. And some of you are more polarized towards your other lifetimes, your other bodies, and your other selves, and you bring those in with you. And there's reasons to believe that you're not always the same you, from moment to moment or from day to day, necessarily. And that you can renew your body. We have so many miraculous abilities that are part of this vehicle, built in to this vehicle. There is incredible, brilliance and wisdom in the makers of this vehicle. I'm not talking about your soul or your spirit. I'm talking about the vehicle you inhabit, because a lot of what Harold was talking about has a lot to do with the vehicle and what the vehicle encounters. Now, as a spirit inhabiting this body, as a soul, and most of you here will have already well developed your souls, this is but temporary, and you can understand that you can draw down from your higher self all the wisdom in order to heal yourself of all of the things that were talked about. Okay? And we on planet Earth have this ability, and we will be healing ourselves. The Earth, she is not, now this is my point of view, but I have to say, as a psychic and intuitive, the Earth is not as sad as he kind of sees her. And I understand she has been sad, as we have been sad. But you go into nature, and their job, the plants around you, the energy, go up to a green plant and just shake your hands and give it away. Get rid of the electronic smog that accompanies you every day. These are the kinds of things that you can do to begin to heal you and your aura, so you don't carry this stuff around with you. It's enough to know about it. People that want to learn about it, it can be very instructional. There can be wisdom. You heard him speak with some wisdom at times. Lovely. He's got a lovely intelligence and a good heart. So that's what's important. Now I'm going to go on to my presentation here about Kundalini, and it in essence go also talking about ascension. Peter Paget, just one word about that. You know, he is feeling the heart of the audience. So you saw him get quite emotional. He is also trying to break through, not Harold, but the information Harold's dealing with. You know, if I came up here and did a presentation on black magic, which I'm perfectly capable of doing, because I studied all of their ways. For some reason, I just knew I needed to study their ways. So I did. I never used that sort of thing. I don't believe in it in that sense. But I know that they do, and I know that they use it. And I wanted to be able to work, obviously, you know, against it and to get rid of it and so on and so forth. So the fact of the matter is that if you deal with things like that, you know, you can get dirty. You can, you know, you can start carrying it around. It can start weighing you down and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean, I mean, you know, in an instant you can heal someone of this kind of thing. And we do have we have at least one healer, well, two. Peter is a healer. Now he's more a member of the Illuminati, so he feels more responsibility about what was said. You understand? So we're also talking about a weight that he carries around. He is one of the good guys. You know, he is one of the guys who's working against them from the inside. It's vital to respect him in this way and understand his mission. It's unique. He doesn't call himself a whistleblower, but he does what whistleblowers do. You know, he works from the inside, and we have insiders. You know, Simon Parks is coming on next, and I want to make sure that somebody watches the time because I don't want to go into his time. You know, so he can start when he needs to start. So I'm going to go as fast as I can, but I want to say Simon Parks also works from the inside. He's more or less an insider. You know, this is what these guys are. I'm not an insider, you know. I'm an outsider. You know, my conscience is clear. It's difficult. It's not easy, you know. So we can't just, you know, divorce ourselves from the other half of the human race. You know, we need to bring them in. We need to patch up these age-old problems and these age-old, you know, injuries, and they've come from both sides, believe me. So, okay, this is Kundalini energy. It is everywhere, and to the Illuminati's credit, they put it right in front of you. This is one of the things they do in order to balance the scales and to make sure that they don't carry around karma, okay? So that they can go through their lives, you know, happy, and really happy, not fake happy. So, Clad Like a King, Naked as a Snake, Francis Villon is an author, and he was talking about Kundalini energy. There are many occult authors, if you're not aware of that, who have written over time. You know, the Magus by, what's his name?
John Fowles.
Yes, and also Herman Hesse, and there are several very well known, many of them English, by the way, to their credit, you know, who wrote about the secrets. You know, they were insiders, they were Illuminati, born and bred, but they revealed the truth about Kundalini energy. These are the ancient secrets, okay? They don't belong to anyone. They're ours as well, and they need to be revealed. So, of course, whenever you see a Buddha, what you're seeing at the top and the gold, this is a Kundalini activated individual with the crown chakra going up above the head. Okay, everyone knows about chakras, and these are, you can color them any colors you really want, but using what they call the base color system can be a nice solid way to envision them. And this is the typical kind of lower chakras, which are part of the immediate body. And I guess I don't have that. I was hoping I had another slide, but it doesn't look like this one does. It shows the chakras going above the head as well as below your feet. So this is how you're really interacting with this world. It's not actually, strangely, in the end, your physical body is the last place of resort. In other words, if you have a disease, if you've allowed such a thing to come into you, I don't care what it is, artificial intelligence, Morgellons, or whatever, it starts at the higher, at the more, the other bodies that you can carry around, your emotional, your physical, your psychological, your mental, etc. And those layers, if it goes through those layers and you still haven't dealt with it, then it manifests in the physical body. So that's what we're talking about. Which means listening in, and that's why, you know, the yogis in the East always make a big deal of meditation, because it's all about tapping in order to cleanse yourself and to learn to radiate out. And this is we are in essence becoming suns, stars. And so what happens is, instead of sucking energy from each other, being vampiric in our relationships, what we are learning to do, and what Harold was talking about that he did when he shut off the world and went by himself, and he was in essence going back to center, learning how to self-generate this important energy that you have that's based in Kundalini, Orgone, and getting that engine to run on itself, you see. And this happens if you do separate yourself off. I have done this, so I'm speaking now of my material experience, and there's nothing more valuable when it comes to this subject than having your real, having really experienced it. And it is no, you know, it is not as let's see, how do we say, a lot of people talk the talk. Very few people can walk the walk. I can look at you and see if you have activated Kundalini energy, how activated it is, and where you need to go with it. I can tell when someone is closer to, as we say, enlightenment than not. I can tell whether somebody is radiating in or radiating out. I can tell whether they're sucking energy from the people around them, or they are giving energy, which becomes, energy is endless, right? It's never destroyed, it's always just changes form. And a lot of healers forget this and start to get sort of like what is kind of a distorted Christ complex and think it all comes from them. When of course it comes from the source, and it is endless, and it goes through them, and that's it, you see. And so then they get depleted and they get, you know, sick themselves and so on and so forth. This is a problem with the mind, okay, of a healer who has not quite realized that the energy is endless and that it's not coming from them. So this is very, very important. Now, of course, gurus in the East, so-called, there's a lot of fake gurus in the East, let me put that out there. A lot of liars, a lot of people who are vampires, and I'm not going to name names, there's no point to it, but there are some very well-known so-called gurus who've taught huge numbers of people, who have, you know, sex slaves and seduced men and women, and you know, are constantly sucking energy away, you know, from others. And you can tell, all you have to do is find out, you know, what they're really doing, and eventually you will know if they're actually acting just like an Illuminati. There's no difference. You know, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a sexual vampire. And Harold was alluding to some of that behavior. So, but there have been some lovely gurus on the East that are working towards enlightenment. Enlightenment, as I said, it's a journey. It's not a destination. And so anyone who comes up to you and says, I'm enlightened and all this kind of nonsense, and, you know, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to do that. It's not up to them to do anything for you. It's simply up to them to possibly be a catalyst for you to remember who you truly are and to start activating these things within yourself, because it's all in you. So basically we're talking about Kundalini. Now the West, actually Wilhelm Reich used the word orgone. That's where at least I know that it comes from. And Wilhelm Reich was dealing with orgone energy, and he was dealing with it when he made Rain. And he wrote books on sexuality. He was eventually thrown in jail and died as a result of his treatment, because he knew, And he was one of the members that was not supposed to be revealing the real truth to humanity, but he was. So he's a lot like Tesla. People don't mention him that often, Wilhelm Reich, but he was amazing. And he went a lot of places that scientists are still trying to get to today. You can have lots of definitions of enlightenment. If you find it valuable, you know, this is one. But you know, you can read books all day and all night on enlightenment and not get enlightened. So it's important to know. You know, and it is important to know what we are doing here as souls on this earth. Again, this is an experiment. You know, one of the things that I heard and has always stayed with me is the notion that we are a melting pot of all the races who could not get along in the cosmos, that have come here and embodied themselves in us in the form of DNA, in our genetics. And we are here in this experiment to learn to get along, to learn to progress through a vehicle that we call human. Human is a hybrid. You are a composite of all the races. And the wars are not your fault. This is programming. This is nonsense. In the sense that if you take the responsibility and you limit yourself to just being an earth being for this time, you know, basically it's the heredity that you bring with you from the rest of the cosmos. And this is what's happening here. It's a grand experiment. And it is not meant to fail. You know, you're not going to be taken over by artificial intelligence or black goo or anything else. Okay? So, and why aren't you? Because you are all Christs, Buddhas, and yogis. And how many people are familiar with Ingo Swann? Okay, and how many people are aware of his website, biomindsuperpowers.com? Okay, I very much encourage you to go there. I hope it's still on the web. He has passed on. He died I think he died over a year ago. We wanted to interview him at CAMELOT. We tried to get through to him. He was aware of our work, but he was in ill health and he lived on the East Coast and he didn't, for some reason, want to go ahead with it. Maybe he wasn't allowed to because of his security oaths that he had signed in his life. But nonetheless, he was one of the best psychics, known psychics, let's put it that way, that at least in the military-industrial complex mainstream world was known. And his name is Ingo Swann. And he was quite brilliant. And he had a lot to do with helping with the creation of what the military is using called remote viewing, which is a double-edged sword. And there are some people, some psychics, who believe that, you know, it's a limited band remote viewing. Being psychic has a huge, it's just like a huge panorama of skills. But remote viewing is a certain kind of band. It's very sort of, I know they wouldn't like me saying this, but it's slightly non-spiritual because it's kind of material. What you would say is materially oriented. So it's oriented and you can find a place on the earth and you can remote view and you can see it. And they lie to you all about remote viewing, by the way. And I've done it. And I actually took a class from Ed Dames. But aside from that, I have seen the proof of it working in my own life when I've used it. I was a psychic before that, so I did have those opening, you know, I had that open. You're all psychic, I mean, so me saying that isn't any big deal, but I had that opening and knew that I was psychic and had proof of it for my own self and so on and so forth. But what happens is with the remote viewing, it's a certain kind of a certain study, you might say. And it is, you know, you can go through protocols and they're very scientific, and if people know that I've interviewed Courtney Brown, and I really went after him in the last interview because he actually was talking about, you know, you can actually time travel and transpose yourself or transmute yourself into another reality, sort of not just bringing the physical body, but, you know, your light body and so on and so forth, in using this in remote viewing. You can do things, you can actually move things around and all sorts of stuff. But at any rate, you know, and sorry to say, but you can kill people. I mean, the military constantly lies to you about what you can and can't do in remote viewing and remote influencing. So I don't want to get lost in that. I can talk about that for quite a long time, but Ingo Swan's an expert, and he talks about that. He talks about the beginnings of it and what really went on behind the scenes, et cetera, et cetera. So I highly recommend that. And he talked about biomine superpowers, our superpowers that are inhabited in this body. So I'm not the only one talking about this. Now, it's the key. You know, and there are some people out there that actually, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear about chakras, and they want to reinvent the wheel, and there's some people that say, oh, it's just the heart, you know, and it's just the mind and the heart, that's it. You know, get there any way you can, but get there. And, you know, I'm not selling this, I don't make money off of this. All I can tell you is it really works, and it's amazing what it is capable of doing. And it will heal you in every which way. Now, if your body has impurities, which most of us do, when you start on this road and you do meditate, you need to activate it from the base of the spine and raise it up through the chakras. And it is like a snake of light. That's why it's always depicted as a snake. And it may be that it was bequeathed to us like our reptile brain as from the reptilian race. It may be part of our DNA package, our genetic package, that's part of this body, okay, this physical vehicle. Maybe that's where it came from, but that doesn't mean it's evil. As it happens, this human, again, this hybrid being, can activate these powers, this energy, and it will do miraculous things and allow them to do miraculous things and to change the world around them. And it will look like magic from time to time. And it can cause you can actually, there are so many abilities that it has. And I'm not, you know, an expert at it. It's something I'm doing every day. In my 20s, I went into seclusion. I meditated for about a month and a half. And I activated Kundalini energy and I had it rise up through my crown chakra. I saw reality dissolve completely around me. I was fully awake. I had multiple samadhi experiences, and when you first activate it, you do go through this massive, like, you know, I'm one with the world kind of, you know, euphoria, whatever you want to call it. But it's pervasive, and it's also very physical because it changes your body. It infuses it with light. We are light. And so the Kundalini is like, the organ is a very strong light. You might call it a denser light than the light you're normally carrying around. So it is sometimes talked about as a flame that starts, again, it is associated with sexuality. And it can be, you know, forcibly triggered by, and this is what the priests are doing. As I mentioned, some of the people weren't here yesterday, so I'm just going to say this really briefly. It can be activated in children. The younger you are, the more Kundalini orgone you have at your disposal. And when you're older, a lot of time it's gone to sleep because you've been in an environment in which, unless you're in nature a lot, if you use, you know, electronics and work under fluorescent lights and eat shit food, etc., you can deaden the Kundalini, and you can send it to the base of the spine and it will stay only there. And very rarely will it rise up, and you can feel it when it rises because it's heat. So you know, you're taught, and you know, this whole thing about women and menopause, nonsense. It's complete nonsense. You've been sold a package of goods. This is so true in so many of the so-called diseases that people have. You learn them. You must understand that we're all very, very psychic. We're all very empathic as a species. So, and this is why I was objecting to him having these certain photos up there for a long time. You know, saying you're looking at nothing but that. It's just not healthy. You know, because you will pick it up. You will mime. You will learn. That's what you do. You learn even from osmosis. Sitting in the same room with people that are, have activated Kundalini will activate your Kundalini. So there is some value. And of course, dark magicians know this. That's why they have, they use things like rock conferences. Yeah, I wish. No, rock concerts. And stone, they open Stonehenge once a year at the summer solstice. They bring everybody in, and then they revel and they drink, and they hope to attract mostly young bodies, right? What they're doing is they're going to suck all that in. They're going to suck all that energy down through Stonehenge, and they're going to use it for their magical acts. I'm sorry, that's what's going on. So those drunken people don't know what's happening. Now you can go to Stonehenge. I'm not saying don't go, because it's a wonderful vortex. It can be activated, it can be used, and you can actually have some higher knowledge come to you through it, etc., etc. But it's all how you use it. So, okay, that kind of was a bit of a side. So we're going, I've said this, and it really is in all these ancient artifacts and things. So it's carved into temples, it's carved into churches, etc., etc. So whenever you see a Buddha, you're looking at a depiction, and they know that you read symbols. You read symbols because we are a people that, again, are telepathic, and they know that that's how you actually know how to communicate. Symbols can be read subliminally and very, very rapidly, and they know this. So the fact is, this is again what they're doing. It's true. They don't educate you about these secrets. They don't come out and tell you openly, but they show you, and this lets them off the hook if you don't get it. So it's really, it's like there is a fight or flight sort of syndrome going on this planet. There is something to be said to rubbing two sticks together through conflict and getting, its thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, okay? They're always working on that paradigm, all right? So this is what they're doing. They are sort of absconding or escaping from the sort of karmic responsibility of not telling you the truth, of hiding the truth from you by putting it on your churches, in your enlightened, so-called enlightened beings, putting it around the heads of angels, Christ, and so on and so forth. It's all about activated Kundalini energy, okay? Now, you don't need a teacher to get there. You can just go into a dark room. And Harold was himself describing his process to go start to activate that program. He has further to go along on that. He is, not to sort of target him, but because he's been on stage here, to use him as an example. He is, like all of us, on the path of healing. Okay? And eventually, if you learn to do this, to really activate this in yourself, you can heal others just by being in their presence. Because your physicality will change, and the light will radiate, and people will feel it. And by the way, one of the things that goes on with, the whole star syndrome in Hollywood and so on and so forth, and how the Illuminati use these individuals, is they look for the individuals with activated Kundalini. They groom them, they make them into stars, help them along the way if they've done it on their own, whatever. And then they put them up on as icons. But then they use that to generate this energy again, and to suck it and to use it. So they are still doing this. Harold was describing like the very early days kind of thing. It's not quite like that, okay? The dark magicians and vampiric type, what you might call, individuals with high reptilian, whatever, DNA, they're doing this, it's their natural way of being, What they are is unenlightened humans at base, okay? And they're just doing what comes naturally. So, having a big sort of vendetta against them is not going to work either. But on the other hand, let me address this. Sending them love is not going to necessarily work either. And I appreciate the notion, okay? We do need to come from the heart, and we do need to love, but love with wisdom. And love is not this sort of touchy-feely, creepy thing that we think it is. This lower vibrational kind of thing that you've been taught in movies and whatnot, or whatever. Now, once in a while, a movie will touch on some of the higher aspects of true love. Absolutely. And that doesn't mean just because it's a love story that it's a touchy-feely thing. Sometimes there's some very good, even movies on this story. But there's a lot of, when people use the word love, a lot of misunderstanding. And you can only go into yourself and understand whether or not you really get it as to what real love really is. Okay? So if you want to love them to death, so to speak, or their diseases, for that matter, it's got to be a deeper understanding. It's got to be love with wisdom. And it must be a much, it's hard to put into words, but you must grok it, if you know the word grok. It's that kind of thing. And it doesn't mean you kind of, a lot of loving, so-called loving, is people think is sacrifice. They think it's laying down for that thing. If you were to visualize it, they think it's, fainting for that thing or being weak towards that thing or whatever it is. It's not that. And it's not sucking on that thing either. You know what I'm saying? It's really an allowance. It's a full allowance. In allowing that thing to be itself completely. And it's not sending your, like if you have really strong, even Kundalini energy or whatever, it's not sending your energy to that thing and forcing it to have more light than it does. That's not necessarily loving it. So these are things we're learning here on the planet. People don't talk about them much, but I think you understand me. So it's part of the Kundalini energy that you learn in meditation, that this light body that you build, that can go anywhere and do just about anything, ultimately, and will be the body you take with you when you ascend. You don't need your physical body. These people who are so obsessed with, can I take my physical body with me? To the next stop along the right way, whether it be somebody might call it Tara, or whatever. It's unimportant whether you bring your light body or your physical body. If you're hung up on that, you're actually still in the material world in a big way, and you're materialistic. So okay. So I want to talk about forget that. Sorry.
It's past 1 o'clock.
What time?
1 o'clock.
Oh, it is. Okay. I think I've said a lot of stuff. These are some of the things you get from Kundalini energy. Real quick. I can send this presentation to anyone who wants to see. I've got a lot of depictions, crowns. I'm talked about the symbolism. Very important that you understand that you look at a so-called crown on the head and they knew that you were reading the symbol and thinking that was an activated crown chakra, and that therefore your ruler was an enlightened being, and therefore you should bow down to them and do whatever they say, because they're wise. It's simply not the truth. It never was the truth. In some cases, some of those people did have highly activated Kundalini energy. Akhenaten, for one. Some of them brought it with them. Akhenaten wasn't fully human anyway, so. And that's a whole nother story. And by the way, I also have an experience in Egypt with Akhenaten and Nefertiti. So it's really interesting. King Tut, they wanted you to believe and follow and do what he said. The cobra coming up the top. This is Kundalini energy. It's depicted everywhere. South America, North America, churches, everywhere around the world, Europe, the Far East, the Near East, you name it. You will see this symbolism everywhere and start to look for it. And when you see the snake, it's not always necessarily negative. Sometimes it's depicting the snake of Kundalini, okay? And let me see if I can find this.
Could you do it at the tea breaks, Nora?
This is really ancient. I forget where it was from, but they're depicting Jesus. It's really interesting. It's talking about this snake of light energy. And why can we even go above radiation? And you see, the Illuminati know this. They know when they irradiated the planet from Fukushima on purpose, they're trying to make you immune to a certain level of radiation. And the ones that die off, they don't care. If your physical body can't recover from it and supersede it, from their point of view, you don't deserve to be on the planet. I'm sorry, So you can circumvent and transcend all of the things they send at you. It's in this vehicle. The people that made this experiment, or the beings that contributed their DNA, were not so stupid as to make a vehicle that couldn't do the things that I'm talking about. The fact that we haven't access to those things on a regular basis is another matter. That's our deal. That's what we need to do. That's the work we need to do. They gave us the vehicle. All right, so thank you very much for listening. I hope that, sort of balances the negativity, and it's not against Harold, because he does a very important mission. All right, thank you very much for listening.